Bicycle on the beat.
Welcome back to episode 19 of the Zoo House Sports Fantasy Football Zoo podcast. Now exactly 2 weeks before the start of the NFL season. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Matt, aka Zoo House Zebra, and I'm joined once again by my nobody's favourite analysts.
Tom, aka Zoo House Goat.
Rich, aka Zoo House Bear.
And Chief, aka Zoo House Moose.
We're a bunch of mates who love the football and the fantasy sports. We've decided to come together and do a podcast about it. We've got your super hot takes and your ice cold bold predictions, sprinkled with a little bit of silliness and humour.
In this week's episode, we're here to save the day at the last moment for your final pre-season drafts with some sneaky sleepers and brave busts from the whole crew.
But before we get onto that, let's take a look at the news from around the league this week.
Who wants to start the news?
I'll do it with my namesake, Earl Thomas. I'd just like to talk about him.
I didn't know you were an Earl. That's amazing.
I know, I'm actually the Earl of Thomas.
You can pay for it now, Richard.
Yeah.
He bought that 1 inch by 1 inch plot of land in Scotland.
Well, I was going to spend our podcast marketing budget on the stamp we talked about, but I bought a plot of land. Earl Thomas has been a very naughty boy, apart from doing some extracurricular training activity with his brother and a woman.
Was that Earl Thomas as well?
Yes.
Oh, I forgot that. That was amazing.
But for those listeners, because this is a child-friendly show, him and his brother basically fucked a woman.
Yeah, but the best part was his wife tracked them down and found them and then threatened to shoot him. And his response was like, oh, you know, sometimes in life things happen.
That is insane.
And ironically, things happened to him in the last few days. It came out, it had fights with another good safety, Chuck, and another team member. And this is what's weirdest is all these leaked things from the Baltimore Players Leadership Council, how he was a negative attitude in the changing room as well. I mean, we all know the famous one with the Seahawks where he ran to the Cowboys when he played there asking, get me on your team. Apparently he was saying rumours that he wanted to be off the Ravens as well. These are all unsubstantiated rumour, but Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter are coming out with some of these chestnuts, which I love because it's drama before the season. So Earl Thomas got booted for conduct detrimental to the team. Now,
we all know he's going to the Cowboys, right? Because Jerry Jones is going to love someone he can wrap around his little finger.
Well, why would you take him? Because it depends on the cover system you play. It's very good in a deep three cover. I don't know if the Cowboys are going to run that under the Mike McCarthy. But also, it's a $10 million salary hit right now, dead money to the Ravens. If you take him on, yes, you could get a good deal in him, but it's how are the Ravens going to get some of that guaranteed money back? That's where they've done conduct detrimental to the team. Honestly, who'd want him? Would you? Would you want him on your team? What's that old men team in Florida again? Sorry, I can't remember.
It depends how good he is, doesn't it? I mean, I don't think the Bucks are going to go at him. I don't think we've got anywhere near the cap space for that. But something I was watching today, they said when they're an NFL player, they're always told, be who you can afford to be. So if he's that good, and I don't know if he's that good because I don't really watch defenses, I like offenses, he's going to go somewhere, right? They're going to buy him.
Pro Bowler, but safety's quite a flush position. I think the only place that could go is maybe Cleveland. Now you know that Delpit got the torn Achilles, which is an absolute body blow for what was a really good rookie coming out of LSU. Really exciting. I don't know if you watched the Cleveland Browns training camp, but yeah, he was really showing off, and I really feel for him. And that maybe is a franchise. The Browns love some dodgy players, looking at Josh Gordon. So maybe they could take him on. I don't know. But Earl Thomas, you've been a very silly boy.
That told him.
But how do you guys think it's going to affect the Ravens then?
I don't think they're going to be too bothered. He was good at what he does, but it's not as if he was the only good defensive player on their team. And let's face it, they're a high enough powered offense that even if they need to score an extra touchdown a game, they're probably going to find a way to do it.
Yeah, that's kind of the way that I'm leaning on this. Is if anything, it kind of gives an extra little sprinkle to Marquise Brown, to Lamar Jackson, because they might not have the elite defense that they had lined up. So yeah, they might need to even push that extra yard and score even more points than they were before.
Lamar Jackson might rush for an extra 200 yards. Who knows?
So we're saying that we should be a first round pick then? Is that the consensus I hear about Jackson?
Yeah, Home League, if you're listening, if you
Home
want
League.
to pick Lamar Jackson first round, that is great. I encourage you to do that. You might as well take T.Y. Hilton there as well, and, anyone you can think of.
Can we not talk about Lamar Jackson, my sleeper, please?
Oh, sorry.
My
right,
deep
yes.
sleeper.
Yes, of course. We'll get onto your sleepers in a minute, won't we? I want to talk about...
Yes.
do I want to talk about the COVID tests or Hard Knocks? I want to talk about...
Let's talk about COVID tests because I think that's the most relevant right now. 2 weeks away from the season, but Rich, take it away.
77 tests across 11 teams came back as false positives, right? So they caught it in time, which is okay. And yes, it was set up by the Patriots. Everyone knows Bill Belichick infected someone in that lab. That's worrying because if you have that situation happen on a Saturday, there's no time then during the season to get 11 members of your team or something two negative tests. All of a sudden that happens. What's happening to gambling integrity? What's happening to sporting integrity? Do they postpone the matchup? Do they play it on the Tuesday or something like that? I don't know. But the bright side of all this, they've done like 58,500 tests between the 12th and 20th of August. You had 0 positives among players, which is incredible. And only 6 confirmed positives among other personnel, which means we're getting a season, boys. It is going to happen.
How incredible is that, though? Nearly 60,000 tests conducted across all the teams, and yet 0 positive tests. Now, either we're very fortunate we're getting a season out of it, or something dodgy's going on here.
What I find even more impressive is there's people doing real stupid stuff. There was a rookie, I think, on the Seahawks who tried to sneak a girl into his hotel room where they're having camp, but he tried to disguise her as another player and get her just to walk through.
No, she wore cleats
hotel.
actually through the hotel.
Yeah,
She was
actually
like
dressed her up
clackety,
as a
clack.
football player.
That's amazing.
Dress like you live there. Dress like you live there.
Yeah.
I actually think that's bold. So it didn't work, though.
No, it didn't work. He got caught, and he's a rookie, so chances are he's not making the final 53, and he's probably
No,
just
he
cost
was
himself
undrafted.
several millions. Yeah, he was that's a good point, actually. Yeah, he was an undrafted rookie. So he's almost certainly not going to make that team now unless he's a real good player, which means he's probably cost himself at least a few $100,000, if not a few $1 million over the next few years.
That's almost Darius Geis sort of stupidity level, isn't it?
Well,
Yes, I mean,
don't
it's,
think
it's a much more innocent cock-up to make, but yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is
he hasn't tried to choke the bitch out, to quote Darius Geis' lawyer.
Oh, my days.
oh, dear.
Anyway, good thing that we're getting a season, but what were you debating? What's the other news that you want to share, Rich?
Now we've had 2 weeks of it, I just want to say I'm really happy that Hard Knocks is back. I put out a tweet on Saturday morning because I watched last week's episode on Saturday morning. There is nothing better sitting there and hearing that music just start pumping through your speakers again. Like you feel like you're back in the season, and it is awesome, and it's pretty cool. They're following 2 teams.
Can
I
I
find
just
it quite...
talk about?
Go on.
Can I talk about your show notes here on Hard Knocks?
Yes.
Justin Herbert's freaking beaming balls.
Mate, did you
What-
see
what
him
was
throwing at those targets?
Oh, sorry, you're talking about the balls he's throwing. Right.
Yeah, not everyone instantly goes to juggling the old gentleman danglies like you do there, but yeah, no, he was throwing some great balls, looked super coachable. They keep saying Tyrod's the weak one, but for the sake of anyone who has, well, it doesn't matter about Mike Williams anymore, he's injured for a few weeks now, but the sake of anyone who wants to get some passing production on the old on the Chargers, you're hoping that Herbert takes that, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it was interesting when they were doing the snap phrases and they were actually criticising, well, no, maybe coaching and giving Herbert the feedback of how he was saying it. Look, if you say it too fast, they're going to guess it's a running play. If you say it too slow, they're going to guess it's a passing play, which I'd never really thought about how switched on the defense would be at this level. But to your point, AD, he'd twig that, wouldn't he? Someone of his caliber would twig that.
Absolutely. You watch some of these, there's like a film review series on NFL Game Pass, NFL Network, and they've got some on their YouTube channel as well. If you watch those, it's bonkers just to see how clued in some of the defensive players are. Like, oh, he's slightly light on his knuckles there, so he's going to pull and it's going to be a jet sweep. You're like, what?
Yeah.
How do you know that, man? And on the subject of Aaron Donald, man is huge, bro.
I like it when he was flexing for the cameras, like Hard Knocks, get some. But it's just like he is just swole. Like I don't think there's an ounce of fat. And I saw he was just born. It's like, if you heard like Troy and Achilles, that Aaron Donald just dipped in a cauldron, maybe like Asterix and Obelix. He was just dipped into that magical potion cauldron, pulled down, but like, you will be an NFL superstar. Your Madden rating will be 99 forever. Yeah. You will be like the nightmare of quarterbacks.
Talking about big players, it turns out, I think this is very important for everybody, that we have been saying CEH's name wrong. And considering how hot he is, let's hear how you say it properly.
Fancy's Clyde.
Yeah.
Right.
If people were still
I know how to pronounce it properly because I heard it on Schefter's podcast today. Take a little run at it, guys. See how you think his name is pronounced.
I've missed this.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh, close, Chiefy.
Yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh, Tommy.
This is like QI, where I know I'm going to get it wrong. There's going to be like big clacks in this class.
Yeah, just get it.
So I'm going to go with something just completely left field. Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Believe it or not, everyone, he's not right. Apparently, it is. It is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. No H sound. Sound. It's a silent H, and it's Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Apparently, that's what they've been given in their like all the casters and all the NFL networks get given like little pronunciation booklets for all the players.
Yeah, bollocks to that. We still call him Tyrod, not Tyrod. He's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he's going to be, the 4th, 5th pick off anyone's draft. He looks an absolute beast in training camp. And if I was the 5th pick or earlier, home league people, pick him up. And if Michael Thomas falls to me,
if you're first pick in our home league and you're listening, take him first pick. Do not take CMC. Thank you.
But for all of our actual listeners out there, stick to our guidelines that we've been talking about for the last few weeks and don't listen to this rubbish. But I feel like we should move on to our final piece of news for the day, and that is our mock draft winner.
Oh, that's me again. Oh, I get to do loads of talking today. This is great.
You do. Yeah.
Right. So those of you following us on our socials at @ZooHouseSports_ across Twitter and Instagram, we ran a 3-day knockout tournament comparing our mock drafts from last week. I'm going to see if I can put a link to last week's episode up there in that corner. Click that now if you want to go watch our mock. And the final came down. So Tom, the goat, beat me out in the first knockout round. Chief, the moose, beat Zebra in the second round.
Solid Chief.
So the final was a moose versus a zebra, and the winner was no, it wasn't
moose. No, yeah,
the final was a moose versus a goat, and the winner by a landslide, 70% of the votes, was our newest man, Chief. So suck that goat. Your drafts are still horrible.
Still second most horrible. Still second best.
That 12th round and 13th round QB strat had worked for you that time during the mock, Matt. So well done, and we'll see how the real draft goes. Which for us, home league starts this Saturday. We're so excited to get going and see what we can put together. But before that,
go on, carry on.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, just before we move on, we as a podcast just wanted to send our T's and P's out to Riverboat Ron Rivera, head coach of the Washington team named TBDs. He found out he has squamous cell carcinoma, a lymph node, i.e. cancer for those of us who are normal. He's been told it's extremely treatable and curable, and even the doctors have said you might as well keep coaching this year, mate. So best of luck to him from all of us here, and we're looking forward to see what you do with that absolute car crash of a team, mate.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Not having any luck this year, Washington, are they?
No. Sorry, carry on. That was my little heartfelt moment.
Let's get on to our actual content then. So this week, what we are looking at are some sleepers and some busts. Try and help you get the most value out of your draft pick, your mock drafts, your actual drafts this season. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through one player each, exactly who we think is our best sleeper that we have. We got a number up our sleeve just in case someone else says it, and then we're going to debate on a final one. Hopefully this is going to give you some great insight. But well, considering that we've got our newest member starting first, let's see what he says.
Yes, I am worried that I probably won't be a member after this one because it's a bit of a stretch. But looking at sleepers, I'm looking for someone in the later rounds. I'm talking, eighth round or later personally, someone you can get a lot of value on if they kick off. And because of that, I'm gonna name my sleeper as someone who I took in the draft last week, and I'm a huge fan of him. It's Mr. Matt Breida for the Dolphins. And I know what you're thinking. The Dolphins last season, the running backs absolutely atrocious. It was just a car crash. No one could catch a ball out of the backfield. No dump offs. Ryan Fitzpatrick was just slinging it. But they've taken in Matt Breida. They've taken in Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard cannot catch balls at all. He just runs into the defense and just falls over. That's his playbook. So when the Dolphins inevitably start to fall behind, they're gonna have to start throwing it. And having an elite back, well, I say elite, having a good running back who is not only great at catching the ball, really
quite
really
quick.
fast.
Yeah.
I think I said the stat last week that he was the player that achieved the fastest miles per hour in the NFL whilst having a ball in his hand last season. So he's incredibly fast. And if you look at his stats from last season as well, I mean he had 123 rushing attempts and he actually got 623 yards from it. And this is just on the ground rushing. We're talking 5.1 yards per carry. And then looking at targets, he had 22 targets. He caught 19 of them for 120 yards. So again, he's making good yardage up, and that was whilst playing for San Francisco, who had other running back options such as Raheem Mostert and the other one.
Devon.
And the other one.
Are you not ever so slightly concerned that he is playing for the Dolphins?
Well, I think if we look at the Dolphins players now that have got a lot of noise coming up, we've got Devontae Parker, we've got Mike Gesicki, freak of an athlete, and we've got Preston Williams, who played fantastically until he went down last season. So we've got three great targets for Ryan Fitzpatrick. So the defense, if the Dolphins are down, what are the defense going to do? They're going to go deep. They're going to be playing three deep and trying to stop them from getting the long play. So we're going to have a little speedy Matt Breida ready to catch the ball and make defenders miss.
But how many games has he actually played in the last 3 years? Because Matty Breida, explosive, but he can't really be explosive when you're on IR, which is where he spent a lot of his time, why the 49ers cut him. That's the only thing. I'm not questioning his skill, his attributes, but yeah, if you're going to be a sleeper, you're looking at unexpected value. And I think some weeks, Chief, you've picked a good one here. He was on my sleeper list, but he's just been injury prone. Too injury prone.
I think the trouble with Breida is he is injury prone, but he keeps playing. If we look at the games played, he's actually played 43 games out of 48 in the last 3 seasons.
I stand corrected. Wow.
He's only missed 5 out of 48. But the trouble is he plays while he's injured. He's made of glass sometimes, and he tries to keep going, and then he ends up just being injured for the whole season. If he can stay healthy and he gets Ryan Fitzpatrick's eye, then I think he's got a really high ceiling. But there is risk there, and that's why I don't really want to waste more than 8th, 9th round pick on him.
I think 9th is great value. I can see that in the 9th.
Do you think his value increases or decreases if Tua gets the nod at some point during the season?
I kind of think it goes sideways because yes,
of course.
There's going to be less value in terms of big plays and points scored and stretching the field, but we also see that rookie quarterbacks often really like dumping it off to a running back. And again, if they're in a position where they feel that there needs a dump off, they're not going to put Jordan Howard out there because he's got butterfingers. So we might even see more of Matt Breida on the field, more PPR, maybe not as many points scored, but in a PPR league we can kind of see it staying the same, I would guess.
Well, that's a great player, and I think you've almost convinced all of us that, as you say, for a later round pick, it's just getting some value where you're able to, and to be honest, no, it doesn't sound like you're going to lose out there. So let's move on to our second sleeper of the day. Tom, who have you got for us?
I've gone even later rounds than the Chief. Again, staying in Florida. I think you can maybe look at this guy with last pick of your draft, fire one off just before you leave the casino, put it all on red. And I'm talking Tampa Bay Buccaneers red. So I'm talking wide receiver 3 who'll break out in Scotty Miller. My boy Scotty's, he's worked hard. Look, last year we saw when Evans went down, Perryman's numbers went through the floor. So much so, Perryman, even though he did pretty much nothing in the first games he played all season, actually ended up the 51st best wide receiver in PPR. Okay. To give you an idea, that's ahead of or around the same area as people like Sammy Watkins, who had that explosive game. Not too far behind, like Randall Cobb, who we talked about as a late round. In fact, that's only 7 places behind. And above people who've been talked about, like Hunter Renfrow, people who talked about him about sleepers. Now, if we actually look at the stats, in his last 4 games is where he did most of the damage. When Evans went down and Jameis Winston, who was legally blind, looked for the short dump-offs. Okay, so I'm looking at Scotty Miller, and you look at his physicals, okay? He's only 23. He's coming in just under 6 foot, 5'11", 175. Apparently he's put a bit of weight on 180, so he's got good explosiveness. We know, and he plays out of the slot or can play out wide. And I think Godwin is going to have a bit of a down year. If you look in camp, Godwin hasn't been connecting with Brady, hasn't been making them. Well, everyone's cheering on Scotty Miller. Reading on Pewter Report, reading on CBS, Road to World, that he's wowing in practice. And everything you've seen in the videos, like, go Scotty, go. That's from Brady. Okay? Now, he is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. All right, he's gone down to Florida to get a paycheck, but he's bulked up. I think he'll make plays. And if anything happens to Evans or Godwin, which Evans has been injured a few seasons before, Godwin, okay, he doesn't have a quarterback throwing 5,000 yards and multiple dump-offs to him. That's what Jameis Winston did. He was chasing games and throwing it, and Godwin profited. I think Scotty Miller, he's not going to break out. He's not going to be like a wide receiver 1, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't end up low wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers. And some weeks he may put up wide receiver 1 numbers. I think he'll have a breakout 2 or 3 weeks. I think probably week 10, week 11, week 12.
So this is an interesting question for you then. Are you going to pick up someone like all of these sleepers? Are you trying to say they're going to fill in your wide receiver 2, your flex pick, or are they going to cover potentially a time when your other players can't make it?
Yeah, I'm targeting buy, but I'm also thinking, you know what, 15th pick of a 10-man PPR league, I think that is where you just have a flyer, You just stash someone and you think, look, I want them, maybe they'll break out. And to Chief's point, yeah, Matty Breeder, if you got him before the double-digit rounds, you think massive profit. Scotty Miller, if you don't draft him, yeah, you could risk it to the waiver and spend some of your fab, or if you're not in a fab league, waiver pick on him. But if Evans or Godwin don't connect, or say one of them gets injured, he is an instant wide receiver 2.
So you're taking him as an unconventional wide receiver handcuff then?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We're talking Mattison to Cook. We're talking maybe not the same level as Hunt to Chubb. Okay, that's a different ball game. But we all looked at Mattison to Cook. And what was the other big handcuff at the moment? Joshua Kelly to Eckler, in case Eckler gets hurt or anything. They're the only real handcuffs. Yeah, well, Kelly's going to get the goal line work. Different topic. I know you like Austin, but I think, Scotty Miller, wide receiver handcuff. And for me, he's probably a deeper sleeper. But at the end of the season, I'm just going to say called it. Okay?
Well, we got it recorded here, and we will pull you back on that just in case it doesn't occur. But if it does, suddenly this will get deleted.
5 receptions for 22 yards and 2 fumbles.
Tom called it. I
said it'd break out. I never said which way. Okay.
Right then. Okay, so moving on. It's my sort of sleeper. I'm really big on this guy. I feel there's a lot of talk about running backs and whatnot around this season, as there's not that many. So I'm actually going to highlight a wide receiver, and Alan Lazard. for the Packers. I think he is going to have a phenomenal season this season. I'm going to look, I think you're looking around the 9th and 10th round to pick him up. I think he's easily going to slot in some wide receiver 2, if not a flex pick numbers, although he's got to face off Devontae Adams and his numbers. If you look at last season, so Devontae Adams in 2018 had 111 receptions. And then last season that went down to 83, whereas Lazard's receptions went from 1 in 2018 up to 52. So you see he is getting some targets going his way. He really helped out Aaron Rodgers in 2019. I think he's going to be, fantastic break-off season for him.
I really like that pick, actually, because I think that on occasion, the wide receiver 2s on teams can work much better under a fantastic elite wide receiver 1. If we look at 2 seasons ago, we had Tyler Boyd coming on the scene, and while he was playing with AJ Green, Tyler Boyd was putting up monster points. As soon as AJ Green went down, which he inevitably does, Tyler Boyd then started to really taper off because they started to use double coverage on him, and he had a lot more trouble scoring. So I think that's a great sleeper pick.
Same deal as the same deal as
Juju,
Emmanuel Sanders.
Same deal as Juju and AB. 2017, Juju put up a gazillion points. Okay, Big Ben was out last year, and I actually kind of want to talk about that a little bit later on. But you see him next year, 2018 was a big year. He had 2019. You see him where he's got no lead wide receiver, and he's a shell of what he was.
And this is it. Who you going to pass to when you see, as we've all said, the wide receiver 1 double coverage lockdown or a free wide receiver 2. So I also think Aaron Rodgers, is coming back this season. He's going to go all out. Probably his last season in my mind for the Packers. Before he's just given up, moves on after their draft pick. But I think he's going to have a hell of a season.
You heard it here first, folks. Alan Lazard is the next Juju Smith.
I feel like that might be one of our best calls so far. So I like that.
So
which round? Sorry, Matt. Which round would you be targeting?
9th and 10th. I'd be targeting him around 9th and 10th.
There we go, guys. 8th round. And we've got him.
8th round home league. I swear, if he goes in 8th, this is it. What we all had to sort of say to each other on this podcast is we're not allowed to weaponize any information against ourselves. But it's really difficult now. If either of these 3 choose Alan Lazard in round 8, they're dead to me. So
the problem we've got
we go.
is if we're doing our job well of providing compelling reasons for people to take our advice, why is the rest of the people on the podcast not going to take that same advice?
This is it.
It's a compliment. It's a compliment.
How can you ignore it? Exactly. So, Rich, give us your player before you advocate and just walk away with 3 new sleepers.
Well, I feel pretty good, actually, because I wrote down 5 sleepers that I think are going to do stuff this year, and nobody has said any of them. So clearly I am smarter than everyone else here.
So quickly roll through all 5 and then go in detail about
roll
one.
through all 5, right? Okay, so my number 1.
What are you doing here, Matt? Don't weaponise, but tell me all 5.
We're going to argue on the final one, and I was going to tell you them all eventually when we try and find our 5th sleeper of the night.
Yes.
My number 1 shouldn't be a surprise to any of you. Listen to this: Blake Jarwin, tight end for the Cowboys. Absolute baller. My second one that I listed was Russell Gage, wide receiver for the Falcons. I want him as a Hayden Hurst insurance policy. Number 3 was Dan Arnold, tight end for the Cardinals. He's been getting a lot of hype off of Cliff, and he's freaking huge and lightning fast. 4 was Drew Lock, because we know the Joe Flacco connection means he's going to be MVP this year. But the one that I want to talk to you all about, and I'm super excited about, I've been saying his name as a laugh recently, because I don't like Eckler. But I did some research into it today, and I'm going to write an article on this because I was so pumped up about it over on ZooHouseSports.com. Justin Jackson, running back for the LA Chargers.
Yep.
He's ADP 160, running back 52 off the board, right? So you're not having to draft him. If you're in a deeper league, you're picking him up in super late rounds. Melvin Gordon leaves. He vacates 162 carries for this year, right? The Shane Steichen, whatever his name is, the OC, has been with the Chargers since like 2011, working on the offensive staff, and Anthony Lynn is in his 3rd year now as as head coach. So we have no reason to believe that their offensive philosophies are going to take a huge change. Whilst Gordon was holding out, Eckler averages 14 carries a game, right? You extrapolate that across the whole season, that's 224 carries. Bear in mind, he's never sustained a workload of more than 132 carries in a season, so that's already a big old jump for him. And when I go through this and I project this, I'm projecting Eckler at what I think his ceiling will be, and I'm projecting Justin Jackson at what I think his floor will be. If we assume the same run percentage as last year, we're getting 368, 370 rushing opportunities for the Chargers. So you take the 224 off, that gives you 107 carries already for Jackson. We have no reason to believe that's going to change because I've taken 10% off the total for things like other backs, jet sweeps, that kind of stuff. In the passing game, Gordon vacates 55 targets, or if you extrapolate his 12 games out overall 16, that's 73 targets, right? The important thing to remember here is over the last 5 years, only 4 running backs have seen over 120 targets on a season. David Johnson, 2016, CMC in 2018-2019, James White with a freak season in 2018, and Saquon just about made it over that mark with 121 targets in 2018. So 120 targets, as I say, that's his ceiling. So we give Eckler 120 targets, which is an extra 12 on what we saw last year. That still leaves 61 targets for Justin Jackson. Give him, say, a 75% catch rate. And then we look at the touchdowns. I imagine you're going to have, between the running backs, 11 rushing touchdowns, 9 receiving touchdowns. This is where I got excited because I extrapolated it out. You give Austin Eckler 244 rushes for over 1,100 yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 120 targets, 94 receptions, almost 1,000 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. That gives him anywhere from RB1 to RB3 in any of the last 3 years. The amount of work that's left gives Justin Jackson 107 carries, 580 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 61 targets, 46 receptions, 400 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown, giving you about 185 PPR points, which is enough for RB15 to RB20 over the last 5 years. And as you've just seen, that's being really kind to Eckler, so this is his floor. Also, as a caveat, if Lynn really does love Joshua Kelly, let's just say this applies to him.
I like that caveat at the end. I think you've seen in the other league we're in, Rich, in the deeper league, I've actually dropped Jackson and gone Kelly because Kelly's winning camp at the moment. That's what's coming out.
Yeah, there's loads of coach speak. You never really know until they get into a game. Like, we've got no preseason games, so it's very easy to do well when you're in the comfort of your training ground. When you're on the road and you're in an actual NFL game for the first time, things can be very different.
I completely understand that Chargers sleeper, and that's why I picked up Jackson, because Eckler can't sustain the carries. We saw last year, his goal line, he fumbled too many times. They won't trust him with the goal line punchings in. You need like the Jordan Howard-esque style person to punch them in. Eckler isn't that. He's a slight build. Yeah, I think your logic and mythology is all there. It'll be a toss-up, Kelly or Jackson, to be honest. We won't know until game 1, will we?
No, but if you pick the right one, I genuinely think you could have a top 12 running back by the end of the year. They sustained both Eckler and Gordon on pretty good numbers for a number of years. But so there's no reason they can't sustain 2 backs again there.
Especially in PPR.
Are you concerned about his health, though? After last season? I mean, if he stays healthy, yeah, I can see him doing the floor at least with what you're saying. But he missed how many games last season? It was
9.
Almost half of them.
Well, everyone has injury-prone seasons. Right?
Yeah.
Like, we look at some of the people that were taken pretty early on, and they've all missed plenty of time over the season. Someone like Dalvin Cook, who's missed a whole bunch of games over the last few years, yet everyone's still happy taking him in the first round. And I'm saying you can take Justin Jackson with your last round pick. I feel like that more than outweighs the risk that someone might get injured. This is going into his 3rd season in the NFL. He's not shown us enough that he's going to be super injury prone for me.
No, I think you Chargers methodology there. Smashing sleep, I like it.
I really like it. I think the only thing that worries me is this battle between Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor.
Okay.
Like if we have a bit of inconsistency in the backfield, if they start doing what they did with Winston and Fitzpatrick 2 years ago, where they just chopping and changing all the time, I think that breeds a bit of chaos. And all the stats in the world are fantastic, but we're going into a point at the moment where they've got two new quarterbacks, and I'm worried that they're not going to be as straight laced as Philip Rivers. How does that sound?
I would only argue that, if anything, the receiving game for Jackson, which is a fair portion, if you're looking at 46 receptions, receiving touchdown, and 400 receiving yards, that's all dump off, that's all check down targets, which is going to play into the hands of kind of quarterback instability. The only issue is, I like Jackson because I don't think Eckler is efficient enough to carry a workhorse rushing workload. And I just need the Chargers to not get completely shut out of games so that whoever the second back is gets a chance to actually then feel that rushing workload. And that is the risk on this. But it's a 15th round risk. So I feel pretty good about that.
Worth taking.
This is it. Okay, so here is where I feel there might be a little bit of heated discussion between us. We got our fifth and final sleeper. How do we want to do this? Let's all say a player that we think is our second choice kind of thing, and let's try and figure out our top five between us. So, Rich, you kind of listed all yours. Who's your second favourite sleeper?
For being a bit fresh, because everyone in the industry is saying Blake Jarwin, I want to say Dan Arnold from the Cardinals. As I said, he's got a shed load of hype from Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff says he's the second best pass catcher on the squad in camp. He's going into an air raid offense. He's 6'6", used to be a wide receiver, which means he's bigger than most safeties and he's faster than most linebackers. We talked about how Austin Hooper just kind of bullied his way through teams. I don't see why Dan Arnold won't be doing the same.
Tom?
Sticking with the Cardinals, I think it would be Chase Edmonds. It was a real toss-up between him and Scotty Miller. And, all right, yeah, Kenyon Drake's in a boot, which apparently every running back likes to wear boots. But I think Chase Edmonds will get, in an air raid offense, third down snaps. And the only reason I didn't take him is I think Kenyon Drake will smash it this year and be fine. That's the only reason I didn't say him over Scotty Miller. But Chase Edmonds was my close second.
Okay, what about you, Moose?
Well, can I do a bear and have multiple? Can I have two? Because there's two wide receivers that I love. The first one is Christian Kirk, who we're talking 11th round.
Yeah.
He's not really on the board for a lot of people, but we're talking Kyler Murray. We're talking they've now got DeAndre Hopkins, and again we see these number two players such as Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins. Will Fuller could ball out and kick off because he knew that DeAndre Hopkins was getting most of the attention, and he ended up having some huge games whilst fighting injuries off left and right. So Christian Kirk, I see him having that kind of role alongside DeAndre Hopkins, because Larry Fitzgerald, he isn't the deep ball guy. He's not going to run the length of the field, and they can't.
He was not able to, as he's moving down to Buccaneers soon.
No, he's not old enough. He's not old enough to go down.
He's not
there.
old enough. He's got a few more years to go.
Yeah.
And in that same vein, I also want to mention Michael Pittman Jr. Because you're not a fan of that.
No, that's a oof, like a oof.
Oh,
not a,
okay. That's
not a. It's more of a ooh. Not a.
We're talking Philip Rivers at the Colts now. We're talking, he's not amazing, but he's a stable quarterback, and he's going to be alongside T.Y. Hilton, who's a great player, but also very injury prone. So throughout the season, we might see T.Y. Hilton go out for a couple of games. Philip Rivers might get more accustomed to throwing to Pittman Jr., and we could see some chemistry develop. And then when T.Y. Hilton comes back, again, we could see a solid wide receiver 2 role there.
You've got Paris Campbell to fight for that wide receiver 2.
Oh, but he's better than Paris Campbell.
Yes, but Paris Campbell's been in the league and showing. It's honestly, it depends what happens to Hilton. It's between Campbell and Pittman for wide receiver 2.
Zebra, who's you throwing in the ring?
I was just going to say, considering I don't believe we're all going to make a consensus decision on this.
No, we have to. That's the game.
Well, then
I'll tell you what, why don't you pick who you want our fifth sleeper to be, so we're not having to throw even more confusion into it. You can have the final say.
Oh, okay. So Matt said about 5 people there. So let's. Okay, Rich, just quickly fire them off again.
I had Dan Arnold was who I was putting forward. The
Dan Arnold
tight end for the Cardinals.
Tom.
Sorry, mine. Chase Edmonds.
Of the two, I'm gonna choose Christian Kirk.
They're all good. But I think Chase Edmonds. I think Tom's right. Fitzgerald isn't going to be able to make those deep ball runs, and I think he's going to be able to. Yeah.
I think
get
we
those
just
targets.
I think we just underline the common denominator here. Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, just
That's
pick
your
some
sleeper.
other Cardinals.
That's your
Basically.
sleeper.
Yeah,
No, we chose
basically.
Arnold. We chosen Kirk. We chosen Edmonds. Like, I think in that air raid offense, the sleepers that could explode.
Cool. Yeah, so our
But
fifth
if you think
sleeper
about
is the
that,
Cardinals.
also think about yeah, basically the Cardinals. Choose someone there. Kenyon Drake. Let's be honest. He's gone from I was seeing him go in round 3, then 2, and now he's first round pick. In some my mock drafts that I'm doing, so it's just Cardinals all the way. Right then, what I want to talk about now are our busts.
Excuse me?
This to me is more exciting. Our busts.
Oh.
You heard me.
Busts, not breasts.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna start on this one first. So, although the sleepers we talked about late picks and getting more value from where others aren't potentially seeing it, here I'm going to talk about very early picks who are going to completely ruin somebody's fantasy season. Mine is Dalvin Cook. I do not see him having a good season this season. He is going to go injured, and then Masson's going to come in and completely dominate, and hence why he would also be a sleeper for me. But I think Dalvin Cook is going within the top 6, 7 picks in the first round, and last year was it? So he played career high 14 games last season. Woo!
Congratulations.
That's really great. But he averaged just 10 fantasy points per game from weeks 11 to 15, and he missed week 16, which put him RB25. His injury-prone abilities just put me off him completely, and I think there's a great opportunity to pick up Matheson and get some value out of him later from the draft.
I would like to
Such a loyal Vikings fan.
I would like to violently agree with you, and I want to put his injury concerns.
Violently agree with me.
Violently agree
Violently.
with you. I would not take Dalvin Cook personally in the first round. You know how we keep joking that Will Fuller's going to be the best 8-game decision you make this year, and how he's so terribly injury prone? Well, since 2017, Dalvin Cook has missed 19 games. Since 2017, Will Fuller has missed 21. So is it those 2 games that tip us over the edge and say, whoa, this bloke gets a lot of injuries, him? Not
It's
really.
recency bias. It's recency bias.
He also hasn't agreed his contract yet. Like, I know that he's saying that he's going to turn up for week 1 and he's at training camp and all that kind of thing, but he's only at training camp because he's going to lose 50 grand a day by not turning up.
But
Yeah,
if he plays week 1, he doesn't have to play the rest of the season.
Exactly.
Because with the COVID rules, all he has to do is play week 1, and that's him accrued for the season.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've heard,
yeah.
that people are really concerned that actually this CBA that's been organised for the COVID season means that he can just turn up, play week 1, and then there's no pressure on him to keep playing.
Matheson then... Why did we not say Matheson our consensus sleeper? Rewind. Matheson is our... Not even a sleeper, in fact.
Arizona Cardinals is our 5th sleeper. Alexander Matheson is our 6th
I-
sleeper. We've got lots of sleepers.
I don't think he's sleeping.
We'll get
I'd-
I mean,
Yeah.
if it makes you help, and Justin Jefferson was also one of my other sleepers, who I think he's going to do fantastic. There are just so many, and the only reason I say that, just jumping back to that point, is he's just been confirmed he's going to start in the slot. Kirk Cousins loves throwing there. I think he's going to do great there. Anyway,
Every draft
sorry,
got
moving
him.
back to bus.
Matt,
right,
can I ask you a
Rich.
question on your bust?
No.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
What bra do you use to keep it up? No. What round would you feel comfortable with Dalvin Cook? Because for me, my problem that I'm calling him a bust is because he's going middle of the first round, and that for me is way too rich
Yeah,
for a player
no,
who's only missed 2
I-
fewer games than Will Fuller.
This is really interesting because you would want to say you'd be happy to pick him up after you've secured your RB1 and 2 already, but that's falling down to, in my personal mind, round 5, 6, which he'll never ever fall to. So I just don't think I would ever be comfortable picking him round 1 or 2, 3. If he was there for round 3, I would look at him. Yeah, but I just know he won't ever get there. So it's not really.
So Dan, in our home league, if you're listening, draft Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook, pick one.
That's right. So, Rich, take us away. Who's your bust?
No, I won't do the one that makes me sad inside. I'm going to say Juju Smith-Schuster. We touched on him briefly before. 2018, he looked a machine, absolutely unstoppable, was just a monster out of the slot. But it looked like, come 2019, that was thanks to the fact that AB was just pulling linebackers, pulling safeties, all that kind of stuff out to double team him. So he just left with all the space, all the time in the world, and he was able to just profit off of that. Now, I know everyone's going to say, oh, but Big Ben didn't play last year and you got the Big Ben Juju. I don't care, right? Big Ben is 38 years old. He's coming back off of a season-ending elbow injury. It's not like he did an ACL or something, right? This is something that strongly impacts his throwing as a 38-year-old. He's never been in good shape as it is. He's not on his TB12 method with his 9 different goop vitamins and some Pilates every day to keep him in shape like Tom Brady is. I'm not sure he's going to come back as good as he was. Here's my favourite stat of it. Juju missed 25% of the games last season, but he lost out on 65% of his yards from the year before. He went from 1,426 yards in 2018 to 552 yards in 2019. He's going, sorry, I should have told you, he's going ADP 32. So he's going end of the 3rd round. That's way, way too much for someone who put up 500 yards last year.
Yeah, definitely.
So, take him if you want. Your one saving grace is going to be if Deontay Johnson. If Deontay Johnson can step up and fill that outside receiver role and start pulling attention away again, it might give Juju some relief in the slot so he can do the old AB tricks. Exactly, but he's no AB. I can't see picking Schuster in the 3rd round or 4th round even being anything other than tears for you this year.
Not worth the value.
I think another problem is with the Steelers is they've got a great defense and they're happy to use that to slow the game down. We're not going to see huge points being put up by Big Ben being a cannon arm and getting Juju down there. We're talking quite a slow game script. They've got a pretty easy schedule ahead, so they don't really have to worry about getting blown out. So that does worry me in terms of their offense.
Great. Well, I'm glad everyone agrees with me. That makes me happy.
There we go.
And for anyone wondering,
Nice one.
I guess round 5, maybe round 6 is probably where I'd be comfortable taking a punt on Juju this year, personally.
Acceptable risk to value ratio,
Yeah.
Right then, Tom, let's hear your bust.
Okay, so how much are you going to be a later round bust? Mine's going at the moment late 3rd, early 4th, and it's someone who was drafted in the 1st round last year by Mr. Moose himself, and it is Le'Veon Bell. You're like, what? But he's going in the 4th. Yeah, he did. Chief did go 1st round pick, Le'Veon Bell. Wow. I tried to trade for him. After he didn't do it.
He was disappointing.
Yeah, and the reason you think, all right, 4th round, he's there with people like Melvin Gordon, D. Johnson, maybe Fournette if it's late 3rd, but I just want to say 2 words, Adam Gase. He is the slayer of hopes and dreams, and he's gone to the Jets, okay? He's managed to piss off an extremely talented safety in Jamal Adams. So the defense has got worse. Okay, the wide receivers, they've lost Robbie Anderson. Who have they replaced him with? Brihad Perryman, who's not clicking. They've got Jamison Crowder, and I think Brihad Perryman, I think, is injured. Denzel Mims is injured. So I can't even name the other wide receiver now. So great. Teams are going to know, right? You can't pass. You can't pass the ball. You're going to have to try and run it. Okay, so we'll just stack the box. Okay, there you go. Le'Veon, he likes his patient. The O-line isn't even that good. You've got Sam Darnold, who the jury's still very much out on. I think Baker, Josh Allen, and even Mitchell Trubisky might give him a run for his money. That's how out on it I am on Sam Darnold. I've not seen anything amazing from Sam Darnold.
No,
I'm sorry.
He's very good at catching mono, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he can
I
do.
thought you were quite hot on Jamison Crowder.
No, Jamison Crowder, yes, as a PPR machine from 20 to 20, he'll never really get that many red zone looks. But that's just because he's the only fit and reliable wide receiver on the Jets. That's why he's a de facto wide receiver 1 for the Jets, which then makes him a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. That's how bad the team is. And the Jets' schedule is tough. You got the AFC East, you got the Patriots defense, okay? You got the Bills defense, which has been upgraded.
That's not a worry this season, is it?
I don't know. The Pats D will still be strong because it can't pass.
It won't be as good as it was, but it will still be.
It's Belichick. Yeah. And then you've got the Dolphins, who Matty Breed will just run up and down the Jets and force them to pass when they can't pass. And finally, the other thing that even concerns me even more is they've signed Frank Gore, and apparently they're going to use the tank that is Frank Gore. He's a human machine in the fact he's still going. And they've actually said, we'll take snaps away from him. Everyone was worried about T.Y. Montgomery the year before, and now it's Frank Gore. And what I can see is he'll be a red zone vulture. When they actually get there, he'll just vulture it. And that's why Bell, if someone wants to draft him in the 4th, I'll profit and take Melvin Gordon or someone else in that round. If he falls to 6th, yes. Okay? Late, maybe mid-5th, yeah, he's worth the risk. I think he's a flex, low-end RB2. Nothing more this year.
I had Le'Veon Bell written on my list as well earlier, but I had to delete him because I couldn't come on the podcast and talk about it because all I wrote was Adam Gase 400 times over. And it got even worse when I did a little bit of research, and the first article I found was Adam Gase saying they wanted to lighten the load on Le'Veon Bell. Right, so you're playing for Adam Gase, and now he's going to give you less touches.
Well, he's tried to trade him apparently in the offseason. He wasn't happy with the contract, got signed because the GM got fired, and Adam Gase has taken on that responsibility. And who have the Jets drafted or signed that's been good in the offseason? Any names?
I couldn't tell you. I pay almost no attention to them.
You can tell who's left.
Where they're going to be so fantasy irrelevant that this year I've just spent my time on more profitable fantasy ventures than the Jets.
As a Pats fan, I just look at them and I think, wow, that you suffer. But that makes me happy inside. So I just hope he suffers badly. But yeah, stay away from Le'Veon Bell unless you go into him end of the 5th, early 6th, because I think you'll get, I've predicted about 170 points, which is about David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, which are 5th and 6th round running backs. Yeah, if he's there, I'd have him. I think he's worth some value then, but no, 4th round, 3rd round I've seen him go. Crazy town.
Right, so we've kind of, all of us, I think, have said around, be happy to pick all of our guys if it was 6th round, kind of around that area is where we're looking there. So, Chief, do you follow suit? What's your bust here?
I think we've all been, we've agreed quite a lot of each other's busts. Cool. But I think mine may be the most...
2 great points.
Mine may be the most controversial. I think that at least one of you is going to be upset with this. I'm predicting my bust is going to be Mr. Leonard Fournette.
No, get out. Right, you're off. I'm ending the podcast.
You're
you
in the
are
wrong
done,
crowd
mate.
here.
You are
Matt,
absolutely
Genius moves. I thought you were going to say Cam
You
Newton.
are the worst analyst we've ever had on here.
So
I love moves.
Matt,
You can
hear me
stay.
out.
You've got a
Hear
lifetime.
So the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're a good team. They're not a great team. And a lot of Leonard Fournette's points last season were made up of receiving targets. We're talking PPR. He got 100 targets and he caught 76 of them. Move to 2020, and the Jacksonville Jaguars have picked up Mr. Chris Thompson, who is a fantastic receiving back. So even for Washington, he had 58 targets. He caught 42 of them for 378 yards. So he's a very efficient player. And what worries me is that if he gets even that same amount of targets from the Jacksonville Jaguars, we're looking at a lot of Leonard Fournette's points going down the toilet. I mean, he didn't do amazing last season, even with all of those PPR points. And we're looking at him going middle round, around round 3-ish, towards the back end of round 3.
Yeah, best value in the draft.
You're drunk.
And And around that level, you can get a Chris Carson who has got no competition at all because Rashad Penny he's just gone home. You can get a David Johnson who might have a really high ceiling this year. He might, stink, but we'll get to that. And I think Leonard Fournette is kind of like vanilla ice cream. He will sustain you for a dessert. You're happy to eat it. It's not exciting. You don't. Oh yeah, Leonard vanilla ice cream. Yeah, Leonard Fournette. No,
you really don't know me.
What's wrong with other flavors of ice cream?
See, I love this. I love this. No. This is all falling back to our. I think this is what we disagree about the most. Do you go for players who are consistent, will get you points, as we've put a beige Lockett? You really don't like him, Tom, because he's not exciting.
He's not Neapolitan.
Every single
Neapolitan.
And I think you've just described it perfectly there, Matt. And that's, personally, I would pick him up if he's going to consistently give me points.
I'm just worried that he's going to start losing them to Chris Thompson. I'm worried that the Jags are going to go down. They're going to have to start chucking the ball. We're going to see deep balls to DJ Chark. And who's going to be on the field when they know they're going to start throwing it? Is it going to be Leonard Fournette, or is it going to be their new shiny third down back who loves catching a ball?
I'm going to tell you very quickly why you're completely wrong and why Leonard Fournette is definitely going to finish as a top 10 running back, right? They were a dumpster fire last year. They're going to be a dumpster fire again this year. That didn't stop Fournette getting... I had him on my team last year, so I was watching the Jags like a hawk. He got 1 billion carries, right? It's like they were like, well, we could win, or we could give you the ball and you just run at a D-line for an hour, right? That's not going to change. They gave him 100 targets. That was for like the year before they gave him like 25 or something stupid like that. His pass catching improved so much. I'll tell you why they brought in Chris Thompson. They brought in Chris Thompson because at some point Leonard Fournette is going to miss 3 games. And I tell you where his stats from last year are misleading. His stats from last year are misleading because he only had 3 touchdowns. You look at how many carries, how many red zone attempts, right? All of this kind of stuff. There is no way that he repeats only 3 touchdowns on the season. He has drew positive regression. Even if he loses 25 targets, I don't see any reason why he's not going to finish as a top 10 running back this year because his situation hasn't changed, and I don't see why they would use him any differently because they show no sign of wanting to be a winning team anytime soon. That, and he wants to go somewhere else next year, so he's going to play his skin out.
Yeah.
Right, like it. So, conscious time. Let's move on to our 5th pick. I'm going to say someone. Now I feel like it was a close call between Dalvin Cook and this player, but I'm going to say my next bust is definitely going to be Aaron Jones. I think that he is an expensive player to be picking up in the kind of second round, third round if you're lucky, and for what he's going to deliver after the Packers picked up AJ Dillon. They didn't get a wide receiver. Does this mean that they're going to move towards more running scripts? Let's say Dillon comes on, takes goal line work from him, he's going to lose it. Did you know that he got 19 touchdowns last year? Phenomenal, really great. 15 of those were in 6 games.
Jesus.
And 4 of them came in one game where Devontae Adams wasn't on the field.
Yeah, a lot of his production last year came when Tay Adams wasn't on the field. And now you're talking about Alan Lazard as well.
Yeah, precisely. And this is where I think he is going to drop down. I don't think he's going to be great value. I reckon he'll end up possibly, if you want an RB2, great, but for having to pick a second round pick for him, not worth it.
Fair, can't argue.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right, my 2.
Right, go on.
Yep. I have 2 again because I like making lists. The one that made me really sad that I was almost going to say as my main one is Gronk. The high line of that is people are drafting.
Look at how sad Tom is.
People are drafting him as, oh yeah, Tom, what's on your brand new? Oh no, it's Edelman, isn't it? Gronk is being drafted as the tight end A. I just can't see him finishing there. 2018 was a rough year for Gronk. He only managed tight end 11. He spent a year away from football. What's his timing going to be like? What's his fitness going to be like? He's got to compete with OJ Howard, Cameron Brate, Evans, Godwin, all these guys for targets. He'll win you maybe 5 weeks throughout the year. But I would also hazard a guess that if you're drafting him, expecting to start him all season, he's going to lose you more weeks than he's going to win you. And that makes me sad. And the other one was Deshaun Watson. You can't lose someone like DeAndre Hopkins and keep being good, especially when you're the 6th most sacked player in the league because your O-line hates you.
Yeah.
Also, Bill O'Brien is a moron.
He's a genius.
Great.
We've been through that.
Tom, who's your...
My biggest bust, Austin Eckler.
Ooh.
Absolutely, Austin Eckler for second round value. I'd rather have Dalvin Cook. I'd actually have... I probably... It depends where it comes. I'd rather have Aaron Jones. Austin Eckler's body cannot take the game script. You've just seen how big a role Justin Jackson... Fine. Justin Kelly or Joshua Jackson. They've traded names. That's how interchangeable they are.
All the time as well.
Fine. Running back number 2 in Chargers. Austin Eckler is a great... Last year, he got so much coming in, and he still didn't sustain it, and Gordon came back and easily ate into it, and the Chargers did all right. I don't think the quarterback, as the Moose pointed out, there's too much uncertainty going in there. And second round, as we're saying, you need to lock in either a really wide receiver 1 or another RB1, hopefully. It depends if you're at the tail start, how it snakes.
Yeah.
Austin Eckler for me is at 22nd. I have him on my draft boards. That's into the 3rd. I personally don't see the value there. And I think if people going in at the 2nd, I think that is a bust for the value. I think if you get him in the mid-3rd to 4th, great value.
Yeah.
And that's for me is a bust.
Great. Matt?
It's with a heavy heart that I'm going to choose Devontae Parker as my bust because I loved picking him up last season, and he played amazingly. But it's only because Ryan Fitzpatrick had no one else to throw to, apart from occasionally Mike Gesicki. But we could see last year. I don't know how many of you watched the Dolphins games, but I actually quite enjoyed watching them. When Preston Williams got involved, Devontae Parker faded into obscurity. Whereas he got injured again, Devontae went through the roof, started smashing out targets. But hold on a second, there's an amazing sleeper coming through all of this, and that's Matt Breida. He's going to take loads of targets. He's going to do some great runs. What's going to happen? Devontae Parker is going to fall off, I think.
Interesting.
Does anybody
I feel like...
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, it feels like we're going to find a tough one to nail down on that. So who's going to be the person who picks it?
I was just about to say, does anyone want to jump ship onto anyone else's bust?
I actually think, and I've drafted him in our 18-man redraft, I think it probably will be Ron Jones. That level of production, it's regression. Bust is maybe a strong word. I think if it was top regression, I don't think it'll be a bust. I just think he won't do what you want to do.
No, he'll perform like someone you could have got 10 picks later.
Yeah. So this is where it's really crazy, isn't it? Where we've all seen on the boards RBs flying off in first 3 rounds. You're struggling if you try and do a 0 RB strat to find some value here, and yet we've just highlighted a couple of players who we think are going to be busts. And fortunately for my position, I'm 9. I don't have to deal with this decision. Exactly why, Rich, I know you chose 2.
I chose 2 because I didn't want to make any of these running back decisions. I was like, if someone doesn't take
exactly.
CMC, I've won the league this year. If they do, I get Saquon. I'm happy.
Exactly. So, very interesting.
Can we all just congratulate ourselves for actually agreeing without any real drama there?
Yeah, that was it.
Well done, everyone.
Well done, guys. We did well. Hopefully, let's see if our listeners agree with us. However, we'd like to hear your views, your comments, and if you put up any names, then we'll evaluate them and see what we think ourselves as well, and we'll do some research for you.
And
so let's move on to our... go on, Tom.
I was just going to say, on the back of talking RBs flying off, we'll be doing a special RB strat and how to cope with them flying off the board video coming out. Hopefully Friday or Saturday, if you've got your mocks this weekend, so try and hit that up. We're going to be talking about 2 different strategies, 0 RB and a patented 0.4 RB. Okay, and that will be coming out hopefully Friday or Saturday morning.
I think that's especially important this season with the amount of quality and talent in the running backs and the depth in there not really going as far as we'd want. I think it's... important to hit that one up and see what you think of our strategy there. So anyway, with that, we'll call it a day. If you've enjoyed today's show, be a friend and tell a friend.
If you're listening to the podcast, then go ahead and subscribe and drop us a review on whatever platform you use. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and drop a little like down there. Click the bell if you want to see everything we do as well. It's all for the awesome YouTube algorithm, and it's free for you guys to do, and it really helps us bring you more of this content.
Let's be honest, just leave a comment for any questions you've got below. And then any Super Bowl takes, you might have your own. Maybe you disagree with Aaron Jones being a bust, or you think Dalvin Cook will be an absolute stud. Or if you just want to come to you with any fantasy advice in general, drop us an email at fantasyfootballzoo@zoohousesports.com. Alternatively, you can hit me up on the Twitter at ZooHouseGo.
Or me at ZooHouseZebra.
Or me at ZooHouseBear.
Or me at ZooHouseMoose. Or the podcast in general on Twitter and Instagram at ZooHouseSports_. If you can't wait another week for more fantasy content, be sure to head over to ZooHouseSports.com for all the articles you could need to get your advantage over your league this year. Get the advantage over yourself.
Anyway, a massive thank you for your listening as always, and we'll catch you next week where we're going to break down our real draft for the season.